Well, let's get into chapter 9, Steve. And this is maybe one of the most well-read parts of Daniel, particularly for those trying to sort out how the end times will go. Daniel gets this vision, and of course, they're excited that Jerusalem's getting rebuilt, the temple's getting rebuilt, and there was a mania amongst the Jews in trying to figure out the timetable. So I'm going to read it. We're in chapter 9, starting at verse 24. We'll go to the end of the chapter. 77s, or weeks, it's just a section of 7, are decreed for your people in your holy city to finish transgression, to put an end to sin, to atone for wickedness, to bring in everlasting righteousness, to seal up vision and prophecy, and to anoint the most holy place. Know and understand this. From the time the word goes out to restore and rebuild Jerusalem until the anointed one, the ruler, comes, there will be 7 sevens and 62 sevens. It will be rebuilt with streets and a trench, but in times of trouble. After the 62 sevens, the anointed one will be put to death and will have nothing. The people of the ruler who will come will destroy the city and the sanctuary. The end will come like a flood. War will continue until the end, and desolations have been decreed. He will confirm a covenant with many for 1 7. In the middle of the 7, he will put an end to sacrifice and offering in the temple. He will set up an abomination that causes desolation until the end is decreed. The end that is decreed is poured out on him. When the word goes out to restore and rebuild Jerusalem, start the clock, and roughly 483 years from that time is roughly when we see the arrival of Jesus, right around the beginning of the first millennium, right around the 0 time. The Jewish people are looking for messiahs. And there was one Messiah figure after another rolling forth. And they seem to think that keep your eyes open because Daniel's timeline has reached its fulfillment.
When I look at not code, but symbol, if
Right.
7 is the completeness, well, what's half of that? In my mind, it's pastoral. It's saying things could get rough, things could get really rough, and you're going to be tempted to say, nah, this isn't even going to happen. God's forsaken us. And it's like he's saying in this prophetic vision, it's gonna happen. Just hang in there a little longer. It's going to culminate.
Even though your 3.5 is not looking good, the 7 will.
Exactly.
So let's talk about that and how that happened.
And it's probably not the rebuilding of the new temple now. And
well, some people think it is.
I know they do. They just got this little issue of ticking off every Muslim on the planet by destroying the Dome of the Rock first. That's one way to.
It's the short-term fulfillment. Most people believe is when the Greeks came, and Antiochus Epiphanes actually stops the sacrifices in the temple and desecrates the temple,
and that slaughtered a pig on the altar.
And for a season, 1,000 days or something, there are no temple sacrifices. The place is defiled, and here comes Judas Maccabees with his group, and they kick the Greeks out, and they regain and rehold the temple for 100 years or so until the Romans come in. And then, and so it seems like, well, that happened. And yet we have Jesus coming, talking about the end and talking and quoting Daniel about the abomination that causes desolation, like it's something that's still coming. And it wasn't like Jesus didn't know his Jewish history and what had happened before the Maccabees, but he's saying it's still in play. Of course, we know that something like that happened again soon after Jesus, when the Romans came and destroyed that second temple, desecrated it. And then you'd think, well, that's the end of the abomination that causes desolation. But John's writing about it, and most people think that John wrote after the destruction of the second temple. And even if he didn't, he's talking end times eschatological. And so, and you mentioned
he probably wrote it in the late 90s, and that was in the early 70s. So
good, thank you. So one faction of the church sees this as happening a literal third time. when the Dome of the Rock, the massive mosque, the third most holy site in Islam, is torn down on the Zion Hill.
Right.
Talk about a political powder keg. It's hard to imagine anything worse than that. And so you have a lot of American evangelical dispensational Christians who see Muslims as the enemy.
Yep.
Who sees that mosque where the temple used to be as a desecration.
Right.
They want that thing torn down so that Ezekiel's temple, chapter 47 in Ezekiel, can be rebuilt. It's a bigger temple courtyard. I don't even know if it'll fit on that hill. They might have to do a little bit of earth moving.
Especially since Ezekiel was completely symbolic and figurative. The blueprints don't work, but
how can you say that?
And
don't you take the Bible literally?
I take the Bible to be all that the Bible claims itself to be, and the parts of the Bible to claim to be what those parts claim it to be.
Do you think there's a chance Ezekiel's vision of the temple is literal, or do you think?
I don't think there's any chance. I think because Jesus, to me, the trump card, and I don't mean anything political by that phrase. We're not allowed to use that term. That was a great term.
Yeah.
But oh well. And those watching, I'm making no comment one way or the other. I'm just making a playful little pun. So to me, the most significant way that house of cards falls is when they're ready to kill Jesus before the crucifixion for being blasphemous, they're saying that the temple would be destroyed, and it says Jesus was speaking about his own body. That when Jesus died, it was if that old temple is gone, and then when Jesus resurrects, that is the new temple. And so the new temple, it did happen a third time in the resurrected Christ, who ascended to heaven and now will come in the same way down. And at the end of days, to me, that is so clear. That's third temple Judaism and Christianity and everything is the risen and ascended Jesus at the throne of the Father, which chapter 7 was just talking about, is this worship thing